Welcome back to today's Explainer. If you write, review, or maintain code, you already know that not all days in a development cycle are created equal. The middle of a project is usually where the real pressure hits and your architecture gets severely tested. Today, we're looking at a completely critical milestone derived straight from our source material, the Day 19 Node.js Code Review Checklist. This isn't just a random list of programming chores. It's honestly the ultimate stress test for any Node.js application. We're going to break down exactly what makes or breaks a modern web server, step by step.
Okay, let's dive into this. Our agenda today covers 1. Architecting API design, 2. Mastering Express Middleware, 3. Validation and defense, 4. Handling async errors, and 5. The power of logging. Let's jump right in.
Before we get into the nitty-gritty mechanics, we really need to understand the stakes here. This Day 19 milestone isn't just some to-do list. These are the 5 foundational pillars of a robust application architecture. Think of it like the anatomy of a massive skyscraper. If even one of these pillars is compromised, or just ignored during a code review, the entire structure is at risk of completely collapsing under pressure when real users start flooding in. Our source material points to these 5 specific areas because they literally represent the dividing line between a fragile prototype and a battle-tested, production-ready application.
So let's start from the very outside, looking at the macro view. Pillar number 1, architecting API design.
API design is the foundational blueprint that structures exactly how client requests interact with your server. Before we even zoom into the actual mechanics or look at a single line of execution logic, your API design is dictating the very shape, size, and intent of the requests entering your system. This is essentially your binding contract between the front end and the back end. If your blueprint is flawed from day one, every single room in the house is going to be built slightly crooked. You'll end up with workarounds piled on top of workarounds, completely complicating any future development.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how clearly it contrasts a good blueprint against a poor one. A structured API design means your server is entirely predictable. It sets up the absolute rest of the application for success, mostly because clients know exactly what to send, what headers are required, and exactly what data shape they're going to get back. On the flip side, an unstructured API design, that creates pure chaos. It means unpredictable endpoints, inconsistent data payloads, and just a massive headache for the reviewer trying to figure out what the code is actually supposed to be doing. Good design is your very first line of defense. It forces order onto a totally chaotic web.
Once a request successfully navigates your API design, it moves deeper inside. That brings us to Pillar 2, Mastering Express Middleware.
Let's zoom right into the code level here. Express middleware consists of sequential functions that process, modify, or completely halt incoming requests. You can think of middleware as the central nervous system, or basically the complex plumbing of your Node.js application. Because once a request enters through the front door of your API, it doesn't just magically and instantly become a database entry, right? It has to travel sequentially through this critical plumbing, pipe by pipe, function by function, undergoing checks and transformations all along the way.
And this brilliantly illustrates the exact life cycle of a single request flowing through that pipeline. Step 1, the request arrives from the client, maybe carrying a payload of user data. Step 2, the middleware jumps right into action to process it. So one function might verify an authentication token, the next one might parse a JSON body, and another might attach user roles to the request object itself. Then we hit Step 3, which is the crucial decision point. Every single piece of middleware must either allow the request to continue to the next function in line, or it halts it entirely, effectively saying no way, and sending an error response right back to the user. This sequential, tightly controlled flow is the absolute beating heart of Express.js.
But what happens if the data flowing through that precise plumbing is toxic? Well, that brings us to Pillar 3, Validation and Defense.
Validation is the strict checkpoint process of verifying incoming data integrity before allowing it to proceed any further. When you're doing a Day 19 code review, your absolute first question when looking at a colleague's endpoint should always be, are we trusting the client blindly here? If the answer is yes, you have a massive architectural problem. Validation is basically the bouncer at the nightclub door. Its sole job is stopping bad, malformed, or blatantly malicious data from getting inside the club and causing trouble.
When we have validated data, we're secure. We actually know the email string is in an actual email format, the age is a real integer, and the payload isn't dangerously oversized. But raw, unchecked data, that leaves the app completely vulnerable. If you skip this step, you might literally end up passing executable code directly into your database query.
Early validation failures are absolutely essential because they directly prevent compromised data from wreaking havoc much deeper in your business logic. You absolutely must catch the bad actors right at the perimeter, keeping your internal functions clean and predictable.
Okay, so we've got a great design, solid middleware, strict validation. Are we perfectly safe? Well, not quite. Next up is Pillar 4, handling async errors.
Node.js is famous for being asynchronous and non-blocking, which is phenomenal for performance and speed. But async errors are unpredictable failures in those exact operations that require explicit catching and handling. Here is the harsh reality of software development. Even with a mathematically perfect API design and bulletproof validation, external asynchronous processes can and absolutely will fail. A critical database cluster might time out, a third-party payment gateway might go down for maintenance, or a user's network connection might just drop in the middle of an upload. These external factors are totally out of your control, but how your server reacts to them is entirely your responsibility.
So, the crucial point is that the stakes here are incredibly high. When you properly handle an async error, maybe by using try-catch blocks or dedicated error-handling middleware, you achieve graceful degradation. The user gets a polite, friendly message saying, "Please try again later," and the server just keeps humming along, serving thousands of other people without skipping a beat. But if you have unhandled async errors, that results in a complete, catastrophic application crash. One single unhandled promise rejection in Node can bring down your entire server instance, disconnecting every active user instantly. Proper async error handling is your ultimate safety net against the unpredictability of the real world.
Finally, how do we even know any of this is actually working in the dark? We reach our fifth and final pillar, the power of logging.
Logging is the systematic recording of your application's behavior. It tracks the specific validation failures, it monitors the route traffic, and it records all those caught async errors we were just talking about. Think of logging as the security camera system for your entire application building. It sits quietly in the background, writing down exactly what happened, when it happened, and who was involved. This provides an indispensable diagnostic paper trail for the whole Day 19 checklist. Without robust, structured logs, you are simply flying blind when a complex bug inevitably occurs in production at 3 in the morning. Let's move to and see how this builds a complete, interconnected narrative of 5 components working in perfect harmony. First, your beautifully and deliberately designed API receives the request from the client. Second, your Express middleware takes over and successfully routes it right through the plumbing. Third, your strict validation logic checks the data like a bouncer and approves it. Fourth, if an external database hiccups during the transaction, your async error handlers catch it gracefully instead of crashing the whole thing. And fifth, your robust logging system records the entire lifecycle for your peace of mind and future debugging. This is exactly what a fully mature, production-ready Node.js request lifecycle looks like.
So what does this all mean for you? I want to leave you with this final provocative question. Does your Node.js code actually survive the Day 19 checklist? Or is it just one unhandled async error away from completely crashing? I highly encourage you to take these 5 pillars we've just explored in this explainer, open up your own code base today, and run a merciless audit. Challenge your assumptions, check your middleware, and for sure, secure those async operations. Thank you for joining me for this deep dive, and keep learning.